Before I get the meeting underway, just if you'll please notice there are 4 exits to the building. If an emergency would occur, please head to your nearest exit. I would ask all residents to be sitting on the floor in front of me. Residents who do not wish to sit on the floor, you're fine to sit to the right, but all non-residents, we're going to ask to go to the bleachers, please. So all non-residents, please go to the bleachers. If anyone is here who is a resident who has not checked in with the supervisor checklist, would you please do that now so we can have an active count of how many people we have at the meeting. All right. So we can be put in a proper civic mood. I would ask you all to join with the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would ask you, your town clerk would start at the front table, introduce the front table, all the way down.
Cheryl, town clerk.
Madam Clerk, business administrator.
County for Seabrook School Board.
See your zones.
Kelly Hubros, School Board. Christina Kaiser, School Board.
Captain Todd, School Board. Forrest Carter Jr., Seabrook School Board.
Meredith Nato, Superintendent of Schools.
Dave Bobs, Assistant Superintendent.
Jamie Hudson, Seabrook Middle School Principal.
Brad Ledger, Seabrook Elementary School Principal.
And we have counsel.
Chris Adler, Counsel for the District.
Thank you. So when we go by these rules, we go by Kelly's rules. We're all surprise. The reason why we go by Kelly's rules, if we go by Robert's rules, it's always a better parliamentarian in the House than I am, and we'll get into trouble. So my rules really are pretty simple. It says that the minority needs to be heard, the majority needs to rule. The questions coming from the floor, I'd like to keep it limited to about 5 minutes. We have important work to conduct. I think 5 minutes is enough to get a point or a question out to me. If you do have a question, you would direct the question to me as your moderator. I will then probably refer to Assistant Superintendent Ferrara for get your answer that you're looking for, and he can in turn get the answer off the board if he needs to. If there's going to be any amendments from the floor, they need to be in writing, signed, and then we will check to make sure that they're in good order. Probably usually I bounce them off council to make sure they're in good order. All right, having said that, Mr. Ferrara will be talking to all the articles, so I'm going to read the article and I'm going to refer to Assistant Superintendent Ferrara. So here we are, the warrant 2023. To the inhabitants of the school district, the town of Seabrook, and the county of Rockingham, the state of New Hampshire, qualified to vote in school district affairs, are hereby notified and warned that the 2 sessions of the annual school district meeting will be as follows. First, will be the deliberative session, which of course is tonight, and the snow date is on the indeed, which is great. The second session will be at the Rec Center on March 14th from 7 to 7. Article number 1, the operating budget. Shall the school district raise and appropriate the sum in an operating budget, not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session. The purposes set forth therein totaling $16,892,885. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $16,832,969, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, Roman 10, and Roman 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only, and a majority of the vote is required. There is a footnote. Note, warrant article 1, the operating budget, does not include appropriations for any other warrant article. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute $4.71 per thousand on the tax rate. The school board and the budget committee recommend this article, and I will now refer to Assistant Superintendent Ferrara.
Thank you, and I do want to take a moment to thank Mr. Kelly for his service. He has really done an excellent job serving the community of Seabrook. We would greatly appreciate the work you've done. I Additionally, I'd like to thank Cheryl Bowman for her service to the school district as well as the school district clerk. Similarly, she's provided great service for the school district. So thank you both. So the operating budget for fiscal year 24, that process is a significant time frame. We start back in August and September. Mr. Belanger and Mr. Parsons do a great job of really putting together a zero-based budget. So they work with each of their departments, and based on needs, they determine each individual line item and take a real hard look at what is necessary to operate our schools. Always keeping in mind what our overall goal and vision as a school district is. So we really try to align how we allocate our resources to what the needs of the school district are, what we're trying to achieve. And to that point, we have outlined 4 objectives that we are trying to achieve for the fiscal year 24 budget. So that includes providing a multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, for all students at Seabrook School. So that means providing challenges to our advanced students while also providing supports to our students that may be struggling. Additionally, we're always looking at the long-term development of high-quality curriculum, as well as our instructional practices and assessment for all of our grade levels, pre-K through 8th grade. Prior to the pandemic, we really had an emphasis on our culture and climate. We recognize that as an area of need, and we are continuing that initiative as we come out of the pandemic, and it becomes all the more important to really build our sense of community here at Seabrook, provide for some of those social and behavioral challenges that our students are facing. And then finally, we're always cognizant of our taxpayers. So we're really bringing forth as lean a budget as possible, while also supporting our students in the operations of our school district. So when we're looking at our budget, one area that is always particularly relevant is our student enrollment. So as you can see, we are seeing a slight decline. We are anticipating 639 students for fiscal year 23-24. That's falling approximately 40 students from current levels. 20 students from current levels. And that's something that we are looking at and we're projecting both short-term and long-term when we're budgeting. So when looking at a budget, we have certain accounts that may be discretionary and a supplies account, materials account, where it is oftentimes based on the number of students that we're serving. So we're really taking a hard look at those accounts and either adjusting them up, or in this case, we reduce many of those accounts based on the anticipated lower number of students. And then we look at it on a long-term basis when we're looking at staffing and personnel for the school district. Every year we do a staffing analysis in each individual department. We look at whether it's our classroom teachers, our facilities team, food service, and we determine, hey, we need to achieve this in this department. What is the proper staffing, the right staffing in order to achieve that purpose? So this year you will see some staffing changes, particularly when we're looking at special education, where we are adding some significant costs and personnel to special education, and that's based on student need per those individual educational plans. So the FY24 proposed operating budget is $16,892,885. So that represents a 5.05% increase. which is about just over $812,000. However, it's important to note that the differential between the proposed operating budget, the default budget, is just under $60,000. So that's only a 0.36% increase. The default budget is $16,832,969. So I know there's oftentimes just questions about default budget versus operating budget and how that's determined. That is a statutory calculation. It's based on the prior year's budget, plus or minus any contractual or legally mandated obligations, and then it's reduced by any reductions in personnel, or any one-time expenditures. In this case, as you'll see, we had a significant increase in special education, which is legally mandated expenditures. So that increased the default budget to align more closely with the operating budget. Now, I will note that what that means is there are significant reductions elsewhere in the budget when you're looking at such a close differential between the operating budget and the default budget. When you're looking at other contractual obligations, such as transportation, for example, where we do have a contract with First Student and there's an annual increase, that does not go into the default budget because that hasn't been approved by the community at large. Health insurance for non-union employees, that's not included in the default budget. Only the collective bargaining agreement employees, the union employees, health insurance are included. However, health insurance rises every year. So those type of items artificially, reduce the default budget, and so when we're looking at such a close differential, that means that we cut in the discretionary accounts. So that means we cut in our materials accounts, our supplies accounts, our books accounts. So I want to be very clear that even though there is an increase here, the school board really took a hard look at this budget and made reductions wherever was possible. So, speaking of those increases and decreases, every budget has budget drivers. Those are the big items that really affect the budget at a higher level. So one area that we've seen increases across the board is due to price inflation. So we've seen cost escalation across the board in many of our accounts, such as supplies, books, equipment, food service, software, repair, maintenance, technology, contracted services, furniture, etc. We're all seeing inflation and how it affects our everyday lives. Our groceries are going up, our heating fuels costs are going up. Gas has come down a little bit, but for a while it was pretty high. And that has also affected our school costs. So even though we may have many of these accounts where we've actually were able to reduce the accounts, the per unit cost has increased due to inflation. The cost of cleaning supplies has increased. The cost of a textbook has increased. So again, even though you may, on a line item basis, you may not see these increases, they have an outsized effect on this overall budget. I particularly want to point out electricity and heating fuels because the energy markets have had a major disruption. We've seen some real significant increases when it comes to those two areas. Now, as an SAU, we do competitive bidding, and we consolidate our accounts across all of our school districts. So we do achieve some really significant reductions versus residential prices. We do have that quantity of scale. We negotiate out those energy contracts. However, on a relative basis, we're going to see an increase. So right now we're paying like 6 cents a kilowatt for electricity, which is pretty low. That being said, we know that that's going to increase in this budget year. Our contracts end December of 2023, so we are recognizing some savings through half of this proposed fiscal year, but we do know that second half we are going to see some substantial increases. Additionally, last year, we were fortunate to have received some federal grant funding. We applied for and received an E-rate grant to fund our Chromebooks purchases. That was about, I want to say that was about $80,000. That's part of our normal technology replacement cycle. This year, that spending is going back to normal. So it was a one-time reduction because we received the grant last year, but we're seeing an artificial increase this year because that spending is going back to normal levels. Additionally, we have our non-union staff cost of living adjustment. That's for all of our administrators, our administrative assistants, our technology staff, our food service workers, our facilities staff, and we benchmark that cost of living adjustment to the rate of inflation for our geographic region. And then finally, we have a kind of an exasperated budget this year because we went to default this past year. So we are working on a budget that's almost $300,000 less than what we deemed necessary for this year. Now, we made certain cuts in order to operate under this default budget, but that makes it more challenging when we're looking to this future fiscal year 24 budget cycle because we're operating at almost $300,000 less than what we had deemed was necessary. So those are the increases. On the flip side, we have made some reductions. So when we're looking at health insurance, we receive our guaranteed maximum rate, GMR, in October. That's for our health insurance premiums. Now, it's a health insurance is based on a 18-month trailing claims history. So we will receive our actual health insurance rate in March. Now, obviously, that's after the deliberative session, voting. So we don't know what we're going to actually pay. So typically, you budget for the guaranteed maximum rate because oftentimes that's what we end up paying for health insurance premiums. However, we did take a look at our past history and the differential that we've seen between that guaranteed maximum rate and the actual rate, and we are hedging a little bit and under budgeting in that health insurance account, hoping that the actual rate comes in lower than our guaranteed maximum rate. We're also operating in a difficult labor environment where it's difficult to hire employees. That means we have vacancies. We anticipate those struggles to continue next year. So as such, we will be, we anticipate that those employees that we're unable to hire will not be receiving health insurance, so we'll see savings on that side as well. Additionally, we were notified by the New Hampshire retirement system that they are reducing the employer contribution rate. So that's what the employer pays towards our employees' retirement system. So that was reduced by about 3%. So that provided us savings. We are restructuring a Title I coordination and reducing a full-time position on that side. So that's a reduction of one position. That's a CBA position as part of the teachers union. Additionally, we're looking to reduce the SAS, Seabrook Adventure Zone funding in the operating budget by $35,000. So we supplement the SAS program both on the elementary side and the middle school side. This proposal is to reduce the middle school supplemental funding by $35,000. The elementary school funding will remain in place. That's actually funded via the ESSER grant. And I know there has been some discussion about SAS and this reduction. I just want to note that, from the school board's perspective, again, we were taking a real hard look at this budget, and wherever we could possibly make cuts, we were looking to do so. We understand, the economic conditions. people are going through some difficult financial challenges with the rate of inflation. We also have a teacher's contract that that is our first priority to pass. So the thought process was to reduce that SAS funding, to lower the budget as best as possible in order to keep that budget low and pass the CBA, or give us the best opportunity to pass the CBA. Also, we were looking at, where could there be alternative funding for SAS? I think we all value SAS, and we do not want to lose SAS at the middle school level. So the board tasked us, the administration, with working with SAS to determine how do we find alternative funding in order to continue that program, whether that's a paid model on a progressive tiered scale, or whether that's outside donations. But I think that the board has made it clear that they value SAS and want to keep it. But they were tasking us, the administration, and SAS as an organization to find an alternate way to fund that $35,000. Additionally, the school nutrition budget was under budgeted this year. We have operated at a surplus the last couple of years, so we are looking at a means to reduce that surplus and reduce the burden to the taxpayer. I want to make a distinction. That's for the operation of the food service program. That is not family balances. Those are two separate buckets. We can't fund those family balances with the food service budget, the fund. We still have a deficit as far as student balances. However, this past year, the board did vote to fund any outstanding balances at the end of last fiscal year, and we plan to recommend to do so on an ongoing basis for any families that are in need. At the end of the year, as part of the final reconciliation, the general fund can fund those outstanding balances with board approval. Additionally, we did, despite many of these cost factors and price inflation, I'll again note that we did look to either level fund or reduce any account wherever possible. And if you look at the budget summary, so that's the spreadsheet that's on the table. You can see many accounts where they are either level funded or reduced. So that brings me to the biggest budget driver that's affecting this budget. So all of those other items I discussed had an effect on the budget. But there's one item, that's special education, that is a non-discretionary item that really represents the largest increase to this proposed budget and the school district budget. We are responsible for special education costs, regardless of whether this budget passes. It is embedded in the default budget. And this is to provide services for our students that require services for their IEP. So this total special education increase is $643,355. And I just want to juxtapose that against our total operating budget increase, which is only $812,269. So as you can see, the special education increase represents almost 80% of the total increase. Had we not had the special education cost increases, the overall budget would only be about 1%. So special education is an area that that we are working hard to provide for programming and services that might be more cost efficient. At a certain scale, you can have in-house programming as opposed to sending students out of district. And our director, as well as our assistant superintendent of student services, is really taking the initiative to identify where there could be some potential savings and look at where there could be efficiencies for special education long term. However, at a kind of a national level, we are seeing special education increase across the entire country and in New Hampshire and Seabrook specifically. We are mandated by federal law. That is an unfunded federal mandate. The IDEA grants, or law rather, mandates that we provide these services and attached 40% funding to that purpose. However, the federal government only provides us with 15%. So that represents $92 million that the state of New Hampshire does not receive from the federal government, and about $23 billion nationwide that states do not receive from the federal government. So this is, and I don't mean to blame the federal government, but it's a challenge that directly affects us, particularly in a state like New Hampshire, where we are locally funded for public education. Many states, education is funded via state taxes, whereas we see it directly on our property tax bill, right? So it creates this inequity because certain towns have a larger tax base than other towns, and it creates a dichotomy where it's very challenging for our taxpayers. So, moving on, I just want to note I briefly touched upon the cost of living adjustment that's embedded in the budget. This is for our non-union employees. That is 7%. We do benchmark it to inflation, CPIU for this geographic region, so that's the Portsmouth geographic region. That is from July to July, so in this case, July of 2021 to July of 2022. So the rate of inflation was 7%. I'll note that we have instituted this benchmark for the last 6 years. So when the rate of inflation was 0.8%, that was the cost of living adjustment in that year. However, this year is obviously a higher amount due to the higher rate of inflation. So moving on into the detail of the budget, I'm just going to go department by department and outline the budget and then any significant drivers to either increase or decrease the budget. So for general education, we are budgeting $4,632,276. This is a reduction of $37,877. That reflects that full-time literacy coordinator position that's being reduced. Additionally, we are recognizing savings in anticipated educational associates and tutoring costs, as well as some offsetting increases when we're looking at rental lease and supplies accounts. And those are based, again, on cost inflation. I will note that the position that we are reducing is not, we are not losing a person, that person will be offered a different position within Seabrook. We do have natural turnover elsewhere in the school district, so that isn't necessarily a person losing their job. They will be offered another position. Also, when we're looking at general education, this is the account where we're budgeting for our teachers. So that does not include any cost of living adjustment or steps for our teachers. That is separate in the CBA warrant article. So that does artificially reduce this account by any increase. Our special education budget is $3,031,029. That's an increase of $643,355, 26.94%. So that's the elephant in the room that I just spoke about. That is primarily due to out-of-district placements. Additionally, we've seen some increases in personnel. We do need to hire a full-time case manager, so that's a special education teacher, two registered behavior analysts, so those are RBTs. Those positions actually have been hired this year, but they weren't budgeted for this year, so they're reflected in next year's budget. And then we're transferring two educational associates from IDEA grant funding to the operating budget. So for student activities, we're budgeting $55,875. That's a decrease of just under $5,000 or 8.07%. And that reflects under budgeting salaries for our extracurricular coaches and advisors. So when we look at our any of our budgets, we do look at historical expenditures and participation, and we know that we're not going to fill every extracurricular position, whether that's a coach or an advisor. So we do under budget that account, knowing that we aren't necessarily going to fill all those roles. Additionally, we did reduce our supplies and equipment accounts. Our summer school budget is $2,500, which reflects no change. That account is for nurse staffing for our extended summer year, so that's our summer program, as well as Title I programming. Our guidance account is $178,342. That's an increase of $2,908 or 1.66%. So that is another CBA position. However, there is a slight change because there was a staffing change. So they were hired at a different staff. Similarly, our health services budget is $155,563, which is a reduction of $4,189. Again, that's our school nurses, and that does reflect a staffing change there at a lower rate of pay. Our speech services budget is $242,449, which is no change. That account provides for speech and language therapy for students with speech disabilities, and that's also per their IEP. Our other support services is budgeted at $1 to keep that account open. Our improvement of instruction budget is $154,528, which is an increase of $5,181 or 3.47%. That reflects salary cost of living adjustment, testing costs, and those increases were offset by a reduction in college course reimbursement, as well as CESPA professional development reimbursement. Again, college course reimbursements, that is a CBA mandated item. However, we don't budget for the maximum. We look at what history, our historical expenditures. We also look at programs that our teachers and our staff are in, and then budget based on those course plans. Our educational media budget is $191,739. That's showing no increase, and that account is for salaries, supplies, and books in order to maintain and operate our school library. Our informational technology budget is $339,351, so that's an increase of $45,044. So I touched upon this account earlier in the presentation. So again, we had the one-time grant funding for our Chromebooks purchase. Now we're reverting back to normal expenditures. We also have our normal replacement cycles and other technology spending. I will note that this account does align with our technology plan. And actually that plan we will be bringing forth this next coming year for another 3-year cycle. So our support services account is budgeted at $62,900, which is a decrease of $23,300, or 27.03%. So I talked a little bit about the SAS program. and the reduced funding of $35,000 for the middle school program. This reduction was offset by an increase in the school's contribution to our school resource officer's salary, and that is per the MOU with the police department. Additionally, there's a slight increase to provide for provision services, and those are services that are required per student's 504 plans. Our Board of Education budget is $55,319, which is an increase of $1,634, or 3.04%. And that reflects an increase in our audit services. So every year, we have an outside firm, Project Sanderson, conduct an independent audit of our financials. We just completed a 5-year contract, and we just went out to bid and signed a new contract starting fiscal year 24. Additionally, we've included a cost of living adjustment for our district officers. So district officers include our school board members, treasurer, school district clerk, moderator, and recording secretary. So that brings us to SAU services, which is budgeted at $630,844. This is a decrease of $2,631, or a negative 0.42%. So that reflects the Seabrook's allocation of the SAU's budget. So that's the central office that includes the superintendent, the business office, human resources, payroll, accounts payable, our database administrator, and assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction and assessment, as well as student services. So the SAU model, as you know, is meant to create cost efficiencies and share those costs across multiple school districts, so that one district isn't responsible for all of those expenses alone. So the intent is to provide for some of those cost savings for all of our districts, provide better services, align some of our curriculum standards to prepare our students in an aligned fashion to enter into Winnicott High School, while also maintaining identity and autonomy of each individual district, because obviously each of our districts, each of our schools has their own culture, their own identity, and ability to make decisions. Our school administration budget is $658,068. That's an increase of $14,154, or 2.2%. This increase is due to staff salary cost of living adjustments, step increases, as well as an increase in postage costs. So our buildings budget is $912,033, which is an increase of $95,385, or 11.68%. So again, we have our various plans. So I talked about our technology plan, I talked about our staffing plans. We have a curriculum plan with our competency-based education plan. We also have a facilities plan. So that includes our capital improvement 5-year plan for any capital projects. It includes staffing analysis for our individual facilities department. So this budget reflects that plan. Includes the salary cost of living adjustments, step increases, our property and liability insurance, consultants, summer workers, equipment, as well as our energy costs. So I talked about the increase that we were seeing based on cost inflation. Our buildings account really was affected disproportionately when we're looking at our supplies, our various materials and labor, and then those energy markets with electricity and heating fuel. We saw some pretty significant increases. So our grounds budget is $57,540. That's an increase of $40, 0.07%. I guess we couldn't find that $40 to save to keep it level funded, but this is essentially level funded. We did recognize the savings in snow removal, and that's offset by some increases in our ground maintenance. So that brings us to vehicles, which is budgeted at $3,200, which is no change. That is the cost to maintain and repair our vehicles that are on site. Additionally, our transportation budget is $910,589, which is a decrease of $113,912, 11.12%. So that reflects a reduction in our special education transportation. So when we have students that may transition from a day school to a residential school, that increases our district placement tuition costs, but we do see a reduction in our transportation costs because that student is living on site as opposed to transporting them back and forth to the school. Additionally, that reduction was offset by our annual increase with our 5-year contract with First Students, and that's to supply our general education, field trip, athletic, and other transportation services. I will note that that is the final year of our contract with First Student. We will be going out to bid in the summer time frame for FY25. That will likely be a pretty substantial increase. There's very little competition when it comes to student transportation. There are very few carriers in business. Additionally, the cost to provide student transportation has increased substantially. I'm sure you're all aware how difficult it is to find school bus drivers, and that cost has increased, as well as the cost to maintain those buses. So that's not necessarily affecting this budget, but I do anticipate some increases in future budget years. So employee benefits is budgeted at $4,189,392, which is an increase of $187,222, or 4.68%. That's due to price inflation of our various benefits accounts, primarily health insurance and FICA. However, we did reduce that overall increase because it would have been a larger increase, but we under budgeted our health insurance by hedging against that GMR. Also, we did recognize the savings, as I mentioned earlier, with the New Hampshire retirement system it says employee contribution percentage, but that's meant to say employer contribution percentage. So our debt service budget is $141,362, which is a decrease of $1,747, or 1.22%. So that reflects the principal and interest payments on our bond issue for our building project. This is actually a really positive account because you'll also note that the last payment is scheduled for August of 2024. So that means that we will recognize a savings of approximately $141,000 in fiscal year 25. This account will drop to zero, and we will see some savings there. So that is very exciting. Maybe not as exciting for you, but it's exciting for me. None of this is probably exciting for you as it is for me. So the interfund transfer is budgeted at $1. So the interfund transfer reflects a transfer from the general fund into the food service fund. The general fund represents all those accounts that we just covered. We then separately, we have a food service fund. The food service fund is funded, is sustained by revenue that they receive via free and reduced reimbursement through the National School Lunch Program, as well as student and staff paying for lunch. So if there were a deficit in the food service fund, the general fund is required by law to cover that deficit. So if we were anticipating a deficit, we would have to budget a certain amount to cover that amount. However, I mentioned earlier that we actually under budgeted our food service account because we have run at a surplus the last couple of years. So we plan to utilize that surplus to bring down that balance, and we anticipate maintaining a positive balance. That being said, costs have risen dramatically in food service. The cost of food and materials have increased substantially, and we've seen some pretty significant uptick in those costs. So that brings us to the default budget, which I had noted earlier, which is $16,832,969. Again, that is $59,960 less than the proposed operating budget of $16,892,885. It's pretty rare to see such a close differential there, and I do again want to applaud the school board for bringing forth a budget that was extremely lean, so that we could bring forth a budget that was close to the default. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you for bearing with me.
Questions or comments on Article 1? If you have a question or comment, please come to the mic, identify yourself in the front of the floor. Questions or comments on Article 1? Hearing none, seeing none. Article number 2. Okay.
And that's the question.
All right. Moving on to that.
I just have some questions for clarification.
Yeah.
I think you can help with this.
Make sure the mic is on.
Oh, hello?
Yeah, okay, good. Sorry.
Maria Brown, resident of Seabrook. Just a few questions. We had spoken, you've been wonderful, by the way. I thought I heard 5 new positions. Is that correct? So 2 from behavioral analyst, 2 educational aides, and 1 full-time caseworker?
So we have, kind of, yes. So we have, so we have 2 educational associates that are not net new additions. They're existing positions that were funded via IDEA that have transferred to the operating budget.
That's
So,
a grant though, right? So it wasn't from the operating budget.
so yeah, it's new to the operating budget. It's, however, they're not new positions to the district. There is a new case manager, so it's a special education teacher, and that's based on increased student need per the requirements of the student's IEP in order to provide those services. And then we have 2 RBTs, so registered behavior technicians. Those are actually the 2 positions that we had to hire this year based on student need. They weren't budgeted for, so technically they're rolling into the budget for FY24. So yes.
So we have currently we have 9 caseworkers in the school system as a whole, or on each end, or how?
So I believe we currently have 9, and we will have, I think this is a 10.
So how many per caseworker, about how many students is that? Do you have an idea? Is it an average of?
Yeah, so each case manager has a unique caseload, and that's dependent on the specific needs of the student. So one case manager may only have a few students that have significant needs, whereas another may have a larger caseload. On an average, I don't have the exact average, but I would say around 16.
So the ratio is usually 1 to 16 per.
Let's say an estimate.
Mr. Ferrara, I think you have a question and answer coming down either end.
Yeah, I would say it's closer to 1 to 12.
So 1 to 12, and that's the state average? 1 to 12?
Yeah, pretty consistent with the state average, yes.
I only asked that because I was looking to see if we really have to have that versus Title I, because Title I is really extremely important also with, as you all know, the stats and our test scores and our ranking of our school. There is a huge need in that area, so that's why I asked how many do you have and how many per student. And then the other question is, Matt, if you could explain, so the default budget originally was 700,000 less, right around original default budget. And then the increased default budget to bring it up very close to the budget. Can you explain what part of that amount was is contractual?
Well, the entire default budget is contractual.
So, no, I mean the additional amount that
So
was added to
so
the default.
so I think what you're asking is, so this current year's default budget to the proposed, or the default budget for FY '24, and the reason for the changes reflects, it's primarily special education. So, about, I want to say $500,000 to $600,000 of the default budget increase is directly tied to special education costs that we're legally mandated to provide, that are included in the default budget. And then the remaining balance is health insurance, which again, we're legally required to provide. And which actually isn't as high as the overall increase of health insurance, because it's only collectively the union's health insurance increase. It does not include the non-union health insurance increase. And then retirement increases, which we are required by law to provide our contribution to the retirement system.
Thank you. And then I'd just like to put a motion on the floor. I don't know if I have to hand it to you.
Motion would be, read and give it to me, please.
Yeah. You can read it.
Okay, I'll give you your hand. So let's read it together here. So you want to make, Mr. Brown wants to make a motion to move to cut the Board of Education line by $1,634, which is a cut. You went decreasing, so you're decreasing it. So it's a 3.04% decrease. Now, is there a second to Maria Brown's motion to cut $1,634 from the Board of Education budget? I'm looking for a second for a motion. If not, I'm going to declare the motion dead. Going once, going twice. I see no second motion. Motion doesn't carry. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions on the one? Please come to the mic and identify yourself. Thank you. We all know who you are, but we have to.
Hi, my name is Ravi. I'm a Seabrook resident. I think that I'm a hardworking guy, but after seeing this presentation, I can tell you that no one works harder than Matt's printer. 25,000 pages, 100 copies. That printer probably works very hard. Anyway, Matt, great job. Great job with the presentation as usual. Good. Just a couple of questions for clarification. The $643,355 that you have for special education increase, you said this is state mandated, right, for the special increase?
Well, federal and state.
Federal mandate, okay, even better. But is it the same as saying it is contractual?
Oh, it's legally mandated. I mean, it's legally mandated. It's not really contractual.
Well, because the default budget, you have the language up there, that is specific to contractual, not for federal mandates. So I'm just wondering if we are complying with the statute, if you are including the federally mandated portion of the budget into the default budget and interpreting it as if it is contractual obligation. That's my question.
No, it's being treated as mandated by law. It's a law.
But the statute doesn't say anything about the federally mandated. It only talks about the contractual obligations. See, the default budget is last year's operating budget plus contractual obligations, right? You say, oh, so you are going by the other obligations
Other obligations
previously incurred or mandated by law.
Yep.
Okay, I got you.
And Mr. Farrar, I think we had another comment. You all set? Do you want to comment?
No, I think I'm all set.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And another small question is that you said these additional positions were actually added this year, but they are reflected in the budget here into this increase of 643,000 and change?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's mandated by law because we're mandated to provide services for those students. In order to provide those services, we need those positions.
Right. Do you have our student enrollment, you are projecting it's going down from 660 to 639?
Correct.
How does it break down in terms of those who are on IEP and those who are not?
We have an answer for you, Mr. Farrar, I think down the other end of the table.
Thank you.
I know that we're projecting, let me just check on that, 119 students with disabilities.
So the rest are not on IEP.
That is correct.
Of the 119, how many go for out of service, out of district services?
You'll have to give me a moment to look that up.
While she's looking that up, is there any other questions or comments that you would be having for the amendment?
Oh,
There's 5. All right.
Pardon me?
District.
5
for
students?
district.
so the 5 students are going for out of district services, and that's where you are talking about, they are, instead of day students, they are more resident students, where the transport, we save a little bit in transport, but we end up paying more for the tuition itself, right?
Right, that's part of the increase.
Thank you, those are the questions.
Further questions or comments on Article number 1? If there is, please come to the mic, identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Angelina. I'm a Seabrook resident and also caregiver to other Seabrook residents. Has it been
One more time for the record, we can make trouble with the name. One more time.
Angelina Calman.
Spell the last name?
Calman.
Spell it for us.
CALNAN.
Thank you.
Has it been acknowledged and discussed the budget reduction of SAS, especially in the middle school specifically, potentially will result in an influx of high-risk teens, which later will be a more costly, serious issue?
Well, I think our intent is to maintain, I'm sorry, I think it's our hope that SAS will continue at the middle school level.
Putting in consideration that, especially when there's families struggling with financial struggles, particularly like that can't afford after-school program, has it been considered that they are specifically high risk and they really do need an option that is after school to keep them out of trouble and help them away from peer pressure?
I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think I will attempt to speak for everyone in that I think we agree with that 100%. We feel that SAS provides a great service for our families and our students. And I don't think the intent is to eliminate that service. I think it's just to revisit it and look at how it's structured.
Is there any particular reason that you guys are cutting the budget for the middle school opposed to the elementary?
Well, there's great, they're both important programs. The elementary school is included in ESSER funding, so it's not in the operating budget. That's also a population that it's even more important, or not, I hate to say even more important, but many families rely on for that after-school care, whereas at the middle school level, there's more options for after-school programming, whether that's the rec program or sports or other activities. But that was the primary reason is because that was the funding was in the operating budget.
So the possible trickle-down effect of cutting the budget has been in consideration?
I think we always try to consider all long-term effects. And like I said, I think it's everyone's hope that it's not eliminated.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments on Article 1? Please come to the mic. Can I call someone first to get the vote? Okay, thank you, sir.
My name is Owen Carter Duffy. I'm from Seabrook, Maine.
Would you spell your last name for the record?
Oh, Carter Duffy.
Yes.
CarterDuffy.
The first name?
Owen.
Thank you, sir. Let's go ahead.
Thank you. So I would like to just read one of the many letters that we have gotten from the parents for the Seabrook Venture Zone to support the $35,000 to be readdressed in the line. So it goes as follows. Good evening. Nick and I just wanted to reach out regarding SAS and your impact to our family.
Come close to the mic. Oh, pick it up. We just can't hear you. Thank you.
Whoa. You guys hear me? All right, so restarting that, it says, hi Forrest, Nick and I just wanted to reach out to you regarding SAS and your impact to our family, community, and our careers. SAS keeps the community moving forward, not only with the students, but especially the parents and guardians of all students. Nick and I have been able to transform our careers with the amazing help of SAS supporting our children's development after school, helping us with our schedules. We are so grateful every day that our kids have a safe and fun place to go after school that is free, helping us through bills every month having this option. Additionally, this helped our children transition to Seabrook schools so much. SAS with their amazing staff has really helped these two children learn to express themselves and develop their self-esteem. Overall, SAS is a game changer for the Seabrook community. It keeps the older teens to become leaders and helps of our younger teens and children to always have a place to guide them away from peer pressure other than after school. The children are always telling us about the amazing memories they have made, and I hope they can keep on making them. Thank you, Forrest, Owen, all the counselors, and of course, Maple, our owner, which is our therapy dog in Seabrook Venture Zone. Your impact will never go unnoticed and has changed the future of Seabrook as a whole. We are sending our support and hopes to continue these amazing memories and the overall advancements of the community through crucial resources of Seabrook. Best, the parents.
I do have a question of you before we open up any questions of you. You did say that you had several letters. How many do you have? I know because the interest of time you want to read them all.
Yeah.
Two letters, 5 letters? What do you have?
I have about 8 letters.
Thank you. So about 8 letters, then in the instance of saving time, you're not going to read all 8, but they're all about the same, saying the same proactive thing.
You got it.
Got it. Is there any questions or comments of this gentleman at the mic? There is one. Are you a resident from town?
Yes.
All right, come on down the mic, or if you got healthy lungs, yell it out.
I just have a question. I don't believe
Name?
anybody else. Oh, sorry. R.C. Seltzer. I think everybody knows me.
Well, she needs to write it down for right.
Okay. You want to spell it? Okay. So my question is obviously no one wants to stick with success, but you guys get a $300,000 grant. So we just want to ask for you guys a free budget. We don't want to sound like villains that are trying to take money, trying to keep money in the schools. We can keep all the, sorry, I didn't bring you until back. We're not trying to shut it down, like at all. Like we're trying to keep the money in the schools. We need to have more staffing in the school. Our staff members make crap. And you guys have a $300,000 budget, am I correct? Do you get a grant? Yes, $300,000. And you're asking for more. And we need it for our staff, honestly. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your comment.
That's what I have to say.
Further questions or comments of the gentleman Owen on the program? Hearing none, you do have a question. Okay, would you yield to another question? He does.
Hi, my name is Jill Gordon, resident of Seabrook. I have a question also regarding the $35,000 for the Seabrook Rec program. We've mentioned difficult financial challenges several times throughout this meeting today, which I thank you for all the information. I've learned a lot today myself. But you've mentioned that you're hoping that there would be other resources to offset the $35,000 reduction. And I'm wondering what commitment is the board willing to take to help find those resources so that the SAS program won't have to cut or reduce any of the current services that are offered?
So the board has tasked the administration with coming up with a solution and doing just that. You know, one thing off the top of my head that, I mean, so we'll explore different options, right? We have a very close relationship with SAS. They're an organization that we've got a long-standing relationship with, and work very well together. One element of the 21st Century Grant is it's intended to become sustainable over time, right? So that the program is able to run on its own down the road. So one thought that we could potentially do is look at some sort of tiered fee structure where, based on need, so any students that are that have financial need, free and reduced would not be charged, but with families that have more means, they could be charged a very nominal fee, similar to the rec program, and many other programs that are offered in other communities. That is just one idea that I'm throwing out there. I'm not saying that that's what I'm suggesting we do, but there are different opportunities that we can look at. Forrest is an incredible, advocate for both SAS and the school community, and he has an amazing knack at soliciting donations. So I'm sure he's got some great ideas as well.
Okay, then you had mentioned that you were hoping that perhaps we wouldn't have to make the $35,000 reduction. At what point is that decision made, committed to?
Well, I was saying I was hoping that we wouldn't have to eliminate the program, but the proposed budget has the $35,000 being reduced. So this would be the last opportunity to make any change to that line item. As you're all aware, any resident can make a motion to either increase or decrease the budget, and that would be this opportunity. After tonight, it'll go on the ballot with whatever that resolution is.
May I make a motion to keep the $35,000?
Well, we need that to be in writing for me, and so would you put that in writing for me?
Sure.
So we'll give you 20 seconds, because I want to keep moving. Yeah, it needs to be signed. Give me 20, I'll give you 20, 30 seconds, put that together. Get a second on it. Absolutely.
So,
By yourself, too, who you are.
okay. Christina Kaiser, board member. There are a couple things that we have thought of in taking the funding away. One, like Matt had said, it has something to reflect negatively on SAS. We all think SAS is a great program. We know it is very important to a lot of students and families that need that after-school program to be free and accessible and educational and all the things that SAS provides. One thing is that one of the options would be to, in future years, put it as a warrant article. So in 2016, there was a warrant article about SAS funding that was put forth in case the funding didn't come from other places. It had passed with a two-thirds majority. So that would be one way that the funding could still be potentially added in. And again, it would be coming really from the same place, because if the budget is coming from taxpayers, warrant articles are also coming from taxpayers. So if the taxpayers decide that that is something that they would like to fund, absolutely, I think it would be the next step. This year it did not happen, and I think that was a timing difference. And I would also say that one of the things when we first adopted the second part of the 35,000, so the second, I guess it was elementary, but we spoke about how it would be something that would eventually, or could eventually phase out if other funding was found. So and like Matt said, Forrest is an expert at finding funding and getting grants, and I know that takes a lot of work, and that's not just like magic, snap your fingers, but that is one thing that I would absolutely support. If there are other grants and funding and ways available of getting the money, I absolutely believe that they can utilize it. And again, I just wanted to voice the fact that it is not a reflection on our thoughts of SAS or anybody that works with SAS or anybody that attends SAS. And so those would be two things that I would say. It would be a warrant article potentially on next year's ballot to add in whatever funding is necessary. And then also the search for additional funding in other ways through other grants and other federally funded things similar to the 21st Century Grant. So.
Thank you, and I do have a motion before me. I, Mr. Gordon, says I, Jill Gordon, make a motion to keep the $35,000 in the SAS program in the budget, essentially increasing it, to keep it in the budget. Is there a second to the motion?
Agree? I agree.
And your name for the record?
Angelina Calhoun?
Okay, Angelina. Second. Okay, discussion on the motion. It's been pretty clear. Do you want more discussion on it, or are we ready for a vote? The mic, please identify yourself, and we'll take a vote.
Hi, my name is Rachel Turco. I'm a resident in town.
Get the last name right?
Turco, Turcotd. I have a simple question, I think. The grant funding is $330,000, correct? Per year? Plus the $35,000 given to the elementary school. So we're at $365,000, correct? Down at the bottom on this nice brochure, it has the breakdown of the position. So we have two spots currently, the SES site coordinator and the SMS site coordinator, both at $37,000. But currently, we only have one site coordinator for both. This question was already asked in January, and no answer was provided about where the second $37,000 has gone. So I'm going to ask that question.
Who would like to answer? Would you like to
I
answer?
would like to answer
But
that.
like actually answer, don't go around the question.
Well, the question actually was never asked of me there. I was actually cut off during that. So I'm more than happy to answer that for you. And just to clarify, no emails, no questions have been sent to me about this question at all. We have had,
Okay, we're going to get the answer to your question now.
we have had several SMS site coordinators that are all part-time. When we were in the middle of the summer, our SMS site coordinator was working at our summer camp program that we partnered with the rec for. At the end of that summer, she'd been given a job opportunity through the rec department as the program director. That's a wonderful opportunity and we support her entirely. However, the timing of that did not allow us to find a full-time site coordinator for the middle school, so what we did instead was re-strategize. We had 4 part-time site coordinators in the middle school, and now we've just hired a couple weeks ago the actual site coordinator for the middle school with 3 subs ready in case we have any issues.
And with a follow-up to your left,
I would just add that any unspent grant funds with SAS are returned to the state at the end of the fiscal year, just like with the school operating budget, any unspent funds are returned to taxpayers.
Right, I'm just going to the point here that if you're looking for the extra $35,000 that you're saying you need to operate in the middle school, but so far in December you posted that your husband is actually the site coordinator for both on your Facebook page. So if you're saying that you have subs basically running this, why was that posted that he's running both positions? And again, so you need $35,000, but this is $37,000. You just hired somebody. You're halfway through the school year. So where's, let's say, half of this?
So I want to be very clear that no staffing in SAS are paid for by the school allotment of funds. All of our staffing are paid for directly through the grant. In terms of why he was on there, he's an interim site coordinator for both sites because we only can hire part-time SMS site coordinators at the moment. So there's a division of resources. All of that is documented. The state is aware of it, and it has worked tremendously well for the Seabrook Adventure Zone.
Okay. I understand.
further follow-up on the questions, I have a motion on the floor I need to make one to move.
So yes, you keep saying your salaries are coming from your grant fund, but so could some of your supplies money. So could some of these, all these other things that you need could be coming from your grant fund. So I understand that nobody's getting paid by the school. Yes, that is very clear. You make that clear every single time you go to the school. What I'm saying is, and other people have said, and I'm getting this, is that the $365,000 you're getting,
you could use some and reallocate your money, just like every other person in the school has to do when the budget didn't get passed. You can reallocate some of your money and have to make it work for them, just like they have to do when their operating budget did not pass. It doesn't seem right that that operating budget doesn't pass, but you still get to operate under your full budget, and we have to make it work in the school. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. So in the original grant that we wrote in 2021, in that grant budget, and this was signed by the school as well, because it's something important to know about the 21st Century Program. It's a very unique grant opportunity. The 21st Century Grant is the only after-school federal funding stream available in this country. Now, with that, this grant, if you don't have a direct partnership between a nonprofit, what they consider a community-based organization or a CBO, and a school district, what they consider an LEA, you are not eligible for this grant. So when we sat down to write this grant, we took a look at the budget with Matt and I. We streamlined the budget so that all staffing came from the grant. There were a lot of reasons for that. The most important reason was that when we do federal compliance checks, which we do twice a year, we have to do something called time and effort. If you're familiar with time and effort, I'm very sorry, because it is very tedious and can be a big headache. However, because we work together and streamline the grant so that staffing all came from the grant, time and effort is a document that says 100% of the time this person has spent is paid from this area. Now, when we wrote the grant, it had to get the signatures of the FOSC chairman, Jill Gordon, and it also got the signatures, I believe, that I actually have her with me, Erin Milbury, who was the middle school principal at the time, and the superintendent at the time, who was Caroline Argalia. It was not my signature that is on that grant. As the program director, I cannot have my signature on that grant. That is where the heads of those departments come in. Now, what I was instrumental with was writing the actual 97-page grant. That's what I was instrumental with. Also, what I was instrumental with was the last 12 years of Seabrook Adventure Zone, an award-winning program that has done nothing but support this community. And every time we get a student that has any sort of need that we are not meeting, we meet that need. Because we love our kids, and we love our educators, and we love this school.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt for 1 minute. I did say 5 minutes per person, about 8 minutes. You have more questions I want to get back to, but I have people in line. So I'm going to have to, we have some other people talking. If you want to get back, I will certainly call on you again to come back. Maria Brown was up, and then I'll certainly call.
Hi, I just wanted to share a little history, and if I'm wrong or out of line, feel free to correct me. Going back to, I think it was maybe 16 or 17, Saz has been here forever and a day with the Boys and Girls Club, and I think there was another after-school program too. We had 3 of them. So my concern is, and this parent that spoke about the middle school, having the knowledge that 2 of the sitting school board members utilize the elementary end, to me, they shouldn't even be voting on this tonight or discussing it because that's a conflict. They say you are. Right? Well, that's a conflict. You're financially gained. So my question is, they shouldn't be, and they did. So, in the elementary end, is there a reason ESSER cannot be split if need be?
We're coming off the question, Maria. The question on the floor, we're talking about a motion.
Well, it's how I'm going to vote. That's what
Well,
I'm
I
asking.
know that we can vote after the motion. The motion may pass or fail, then you can vote. But we have a motion on the floor, and I like your comments to be as tight as you can.
Yeah, okay.
Just tight as you
So
can.
is there a way that that $35,000 ESSER grant can be split? Or does it have to be just elementary? Say you have a downturn in students. Can you split that and use it for middle school? Or is it just because they specifically voted to have it just elementary? And then the other piece of this is the school board put in money and believed in this program out of an operating budget 2 years ago. And we said, gee, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, but it happened. So now we're here today where guess what? Kids are going to be extremely affected by the decisions the board made then and now. So that's my question. Is there any way you can divide that money up? Because they're earmarking it just for elementary.
Who wants to answer that question?
Matt, you might be the one to, I don't actually know what our restrictions are in terms of.
So the chair would like to recognize, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
I think that it would be best if Matt answers questions to Sash and what's going on, because I'm extremely uncomfortable with the fact that we have a board member up here supporting funding that was taken out of the budget. As a board, you're supposed to support your board, so I just feel that it would be best for everybody, including Sash, if Matt continues with the answers.
I certainly have no problem with that. Forrest is a member of the board. He has entitled a minority opinion. I think he has then brought the minority opinion forward. But if you don't mind, sir, we now will go back to the superintendent for some comment.
Sure. I think the $35,000 in the grant itself was written for elementary school program support. Is that accurate now?
Correct.
So the ESSER grant could be rewritten to divide those funds, just to have it be specific to the SADS after-school program as it stands. It was written specifically for the elementary program.
Okay, now we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Gordon. Anybody else want to speak to the motion that is on the floor?
Just have a question about the motion.
And could you please give us your name and for the record?
Justin Packard, P-A-C-K-A-R-D.
Yes, Mr. Patrick.
The motion to increase the proposed budget, is there anything that requires that the money be spent on SADS if the proposed budget's increased?
Well, I'll defer, but usually what happens with voter intent is pretty clear here, but I will let the superintendent speak to it.
So,
Line budget.
right, so it's a bottom line, great question, by the way. So it's a bottom line budget, any change during the deliberative session, in addition would go to the bottom line, and then it would be the school board's discretion to utilize those funds as they see fit. Now, typically, if there's intent associated with an increase or decrease, the board would take that under advisement, but ultimately it's their decision on how to use the funds.
And my second question is, regardless if the proposed or default budget is passed, the board still has the discretion next year to change their mind, right? On how they want to spend the money.
Right, so again, as a bottom line budget, they do have that discretion.
Thank you.
Further questions on the floor amendment? Hearing none, seeing none, let's vote on the amendment. The amendment again is I, Jill Gordon, make a motion to keep the $35,000 or restore $35,000 in the SAD budget. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. Nays have it, the motion fails. Further questions and comments on Article 1? Hearing none? Seeing none, Article 1 shall appear on the warrant as submitted. Article 2, Seacoast Education Association collective bargaining agreement. To see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Seabrook School Board and the Seabrook Education Association for the following increase in reductions in salaries and benefits and at current staff levels. As you can see, there's a table in that. I am not going to read the table because the assistant superintendent will speak to it when I'm done reading the warrant article. And further to raise and appropriate the sum of $493,848 for the 2023-2024 school year. Such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement for those that we pay at current staffing levels in accordance with the current collective bargaining agreement, the majority vote is required. The school board and the budget committee recommend this article, and there is a note. Note, in order for this article to be adopted, it must be approved by the voters of the school districts of Hampton Falls, Northampton, Seabrook, Southampton, and the voters of the Winter County Cooperative School District, which includes Hampton voters. Should this article be approved, it's estimated it will cost essentially 1.377 cents per thousand on the tax rate. Assistant Superintendent, would you like to speak to Article 2?
13 cents. It's 13 cents.
Oh, thank you. My bad.
Thank you. I believe the chair.
Chair, I'm sorry, would you like to speak? Sure, thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration in regards to the funding.
Article 1.
Operating budget.
There's been a motion to restrict Article 1. Is there a second? All in favor? Anyone want to speak to the motion? It's just that we want to keep the meeting moving. That's usually a common thing to do. So, all in favor of restricting Article 1, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 1 is restricted. Thank you. Mr. Assistant Superintendent, would you take the lead on that now?
Thank you. So, warrant article 2 is the collective bargaining agreements, warrant article for our teachers contract. I want to just take note that this is really the administration and the school board's top priority this year. It is absolutely the most important warrant article on ballot, and it really is essential to the success of our schools. Now granted, we only have 2 warrant articles, but that's a testament to the focus we have on the CBA. We have a number of capital improvement projects, warrant articles that were slated for this fiscal year that we've deferred because the CBA is so important. I'll also note that CBAs are particularly difficult to gain voter approval in SAU 21. We really have this unique cooperative structure where if the CBA fails on any one district ballot, it fails for all of our districts. So hypothetically, if it were to fail here at Seabrook, it would also fail at Winnicott for our teachers. It would fail at Northampton, Hampton Falls, and Southampton, in addition to our teachers here at Seabrook. So this is regardless of the ballot outcome in any one district. So one town can fail the CBA for all the other towns. So this kind of idiosyncrasy has resulted in the teacher's contract failing 3 times since 2010. And this really does negatively affect our school district, both in the retention and hiring of high-quality teachers. So speaking of teachers, I can't emphasize how amazing our teachers here are at Seabrook. They're in our classrooms every day working with our students, providing individualized and personalized instruction. They just do incredible work to provide some of that hands-on learning opportunities that are so important for our students in this new paradigm. And they provide some educational experiences that really are what makes our schools great. So I talked about the MTSS structure, and our teachers here at Seabrook are really excel at both challenging our advanced students as well as providing some of those supports and interventions for our struggling students. And that's both academically and social emotionally. There's a real, this isn't our school model from when we were in school. Our students these days really need that social emotional support, and our teachers are performing that and delivering it to our students. So I can't say enough how fortunate we are to have the tremendous faculty that we have here at SAU 21. So as such, it's really important that we provide competitive compensation, and that's relative to comparable school districts in our area. So when we're looking at, SAU 16, so that's Exeter, Kensington, when we're looking at Rye, Portsmouth, Oyster River, when you look at what we provide for compensation, on average, we pay our teachers about $6,000 less than those other Seacoast schools. In addition to the salary differential, we also provide a less generous benefits package. So this is really problematic because if our teacher's contract fails, that gap only widens. So most of our area SAUs already have CBAs that have passed and are in effect currently. So if we fail a contract, that means our teachers receive no step increase and they receive no cost of living adjustment. So that wage gap, that existing wage gap, only widens. And that's about $10,000 at that point. Plus, there's no step increase. So at that differential, $5,000–6,000 a teacher may not be. But once we're talking about $10,000 and the ability to gain back that step, because if they go elsewhere out of SAU 21, they get that step back because it's based on experience, then I am worried that we will lose teachers. And I know, based on past experience, we will lose teachers. And that is something that we we cannot afford to let happen. So, in addition to some of this local competition for teaching talent, we're also really struggling and we're combating against some really like national, state, and local trends when it comes to teacher applicant pools and teachers entering the field, or college students entering the field of education. Simply put, public education is no longer an attractive profession. Nationally, the number of college students pursuing a traditional education program has decreased by a full third. And we're not immune here in the Seacoast. So we've traditionally had a nice pipeline of college graduates come out of UNH as applicants here in SAU 21. But even at UNH, students pursuing an education undergraduate degree has dropped from 103 students in 2010 to 32 students in 2022. UNH students pursuing a master's degree in education went from 250 students in 2010 to 116 in 2022. That's devastating. And this has a direct correlation on qualified students for our positions here in SAU 21. We have seen a decline of close to 60% in our open position applicant pool over the last 10 years. In addition to this decline in college students that are entering the profession, we're also combating teachers leaving the profession. We've really seen an exodus. Again, this is not just us. This is nationally at the state level, but it is affecting us here at SAU 21. We've seen 15 teachers leave over the last 2 years, and that's not due to retirement or like natural attrition. On average, teachers are paid 23.5% less than college students with comparable degrees in other professions. So simply put, our teachers can get better paying jobs in other professions, and they are doing that right now. So I don't think I'm telling anyone anything new. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but these are issues that are affecting us directly. So it's incredibly important that we provide competitive compensation so that we can keep our amazing teachers and provide an opportunity for us to attract new high-quality teachers. And this CBA has a direct impact on that to achieve that purpose. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Patrick Mount, school board member. I had the opportunity to sit in on the negotiations committee with the teachers as your elected representative, and I have to tell you, this is an extremely fair deal. And this is what our residents would like to see. We're going to be able to retain our amazing teachers. Like, let's remember the schools that were open during COVID, that everybody worked extremely hard to come in and do all this stuff. Our kids are out learning outdoors. Like Matt said, this isn't the school that I grew up in. This isn't the school that people used to go to. Like, my kids come home every single day ranting and raving about the teachers. And my number one priority out of absolutely everything is to get these teachers the contract that they deserve. They need to be on par with Oyster River, with Portsmouth, with all this, because we have an amazing school ecosystem here. I mean, just look at the grounds here at Seabrook. We have the marsh, everything. They've turned it into a complete outdoor learning space, and that's not happening everywhere else. Like, they have gone above and beyond, and they were willing to negotiate. The teachers did a great job by saying, like, this is what we can give up. What can you guys give up? And it was a back and forth. And we sat there, and it was very, like, amicable back and forth. And I couldn't have been happier to sit on that. And as your elected school board representative, like, you have us up here to make sure that these contract stuff go through. So from my point of view, I think this is an extremely fair contract, and that the people need to get the word out to everybody else that this is what needs to pass. 110%. Our teachers need the new contract, they need the pay raise, and they need the benefits. So out of all the other stuff that we've talked about today, and I know it's all important, this was #1 priority. Last year, everyone came out with red pens and voted absolutely everything down because of the economic times. This year, we need 110% without a shadow of a doubt, everyone to come out and vote and pass this teacher's contract. That's my #1 priority, is to get the teachers the contract that they so desperately deserve.
Before I open the questions to the floor, does anyone else at the head table wish to comment, or any other board member wish to comment?
I echo everything that Pat said. I also think it's important to highlight again the fact that since the town budget was voted down last year, did change perspective on a lot of where the funding was going this year, making sure that we paid attention to every dollar that the school is putting out, where it's going, what it's going for, and that, again, all comes down to the teacher pay. We want the teachers to get as much as they possibly can, and if this is the way to do it, this is the way to do it. And if we could add it into the budget, or if we could take it out of our own pockets, I would do it. And I can't do that, so this is the way to do it. And we need to make sure that we tell everyone that you cannot just go and vote no to everything because you think that that's the way to save money, because it's going to come back, and it's going to come back in a lot of negative ways. If we vote it down now, it doesn't mean it goes away, it doesn't disappear, this money just doesn't come back into our pockets. There are really important things being done in the school, and the trajectory that we are on is positive. It's very positive, and I can tell you that everyone sees it. And to keep that trajectory going, we need to put the money where it belongs, in the teachers' pockets. And whatever we need to do that, whatever money we need to take away or add, or however that needs to happen, that's what we need to do. That is our #1 priority.
Further questions from the head table before I go to the floor? Anything else from the head table? Seeing none, anyone wish to comment on Article 2 from the floor? Please come to the mic.
Can you hear me? I'm sure you can. I just want to speak as somebody that has children in the school too. The money that the teachers aren't making, that all the other places are making, they spend more than that out of their own pocket now. And I can tell you the amazing things that 4th grade, for instance, Mr. Small, Mrs. Christian, are amazing. I have never, okay, and I went here, Lotto went here, and now more. Never seen the out-of-the-box anything like this. It's incredible. And the other piece that I want to say is that we're not discussing charter school. We have a charter school that is putting big capital letters, Seabrook kids can come for free, in all other towns. I just want people to understand, and they're going to have a high school next year. They cannot go for free. When they leave, if they were to leave, they take money with them to that school. So what I'm trying to say is to retain our staff. I think it's utterly important today, more than ever, to support our teachers. And another thing, we know the last 3 years have been horrible, but they stayed. And the ones that didn't, for whatever reason, we appreciate them still, but we must support them, and in hopes that we can see a huge school improvement in academics, social, emotional, and behavior. And to not do that, I think at this point, we would really have a huge loss for our kids. So thank you.
Further questions or comments on Article 2? Hearing none. Seeing none, Article 2 will appear on the ballot as submitted. Article number 3, petition article child benefit services. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,274 to provide child benefit services in accordance with RSA 189:49 for students who are residents of the Seabrook School District and attending Sacred Heart School located in Hampton, New Hampshire. This is a citizen's petition by 25 or more registered voters in the town of Seabrook. Majority vote is required. The school board does not recommend this article. The budget committee recommends this article. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0045 per thousand in the tax rate. Are any of the petitioners here that would like to speak to the article? Seeing none, I'll ask the Assistant Superintendent to speak to Article 3.
Thank you. So the Sacred Heart School is a Catholic school located in Hampton, and they submit an annual citizens petition article. And this year it's in the amount of $16,274. And the intent is for Seabrook residents, it's for Seabrook residents who attend Sacred Heart, and it funds their purchase of technology, supplies, and books. And that applies to 15 Seabrook residents who attend the school.
Any questions or comments on Article number 3? Yes, sir.
It is of my opinion and the rest of the school board that we have put out that this doesn't pass. Again, my 110% effort is in our public schools. If somebody chooses to send people to Catholic private schools, funds should be coming out of their pockets. This is our public school, public funds. I know this doesn't have any effect necessarily on our school budget, but money that goes to Catholic private schools is taxpayer money that could be used somewhere else in the town, or how about this, like cutting down our tax rate. So I think it's important that that one gets voted down, and that is the opinion of the board that we do not recommend supporting $16,000 to look at the private school for 15 students.
Further questions or comments on Article number 3? Hearing none. Seeing none. Article 3 will appear on the ballot as submitted. Article number 4, transfer any other business that's legally come before us. Mr. Superintendent, has anything legally come before you to bring before us tonight?
No.
There's nothing else there. So session number 2, the ballot. We will meet at the Seabrook Rec Center on the 14th of March from 7 in the morning to elect officials by ballot, office of the school district, and to vote by official ballot on warrant articles. The first session, voting on the office will consist of the 2 school board members for ensuing 3 years, 1 school district clerk for ensuing 3 years, 1 school district moderator for 3 years, and 1 school district treasurer for 3 years. And just while we're here in the room, I would ask the 2 people that are running to run opposed, the moderator and the clerk to stand so you can eyeball who's running. Would you stand for if you know who's running? Rio is my replacement. Thank you, Rio. And the replacement for Cheryl, and they're running opposed. Thank you. So I will call this meeting to adjourn till Mr. Tilton drops the gavel to open it on March 14th. Stand adjourned.